Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Jody, and on my channel I talk about Broadway and books. And in today's video, I'll be giving a spoiler-free review on the latest book that I have read. So I'll talk a little bit on what the book is about, share my thoughts on the book, as well as my star rating. So without any further ado, let's get on to today's spoiler-free book review, and that will be for the book The Death of Vivek Oji by Akwaeke Emezi. So The Death of Vivek Oji is about Vivek's mother opening the front door to their home, only to discover her son Vivek's body dead on the ground before her, wrapped up in some colorful fabric. From there, the story goes back and forth in time, where we get to know who Vivek was when they were alive and what led to their tragic death. This is the first book by Akwaeke Emezi that I've read after reading one of this author's books. Now, I am definitely interested in reading more from this author at some point in the future, so now for my thoughts on the book. To start off, I really like this book quite a lot. There are a lot of things about this book that I liked and thought were very well done, and so I'll go on to talk about what I liked about the book. So the first thing I liked about the book was the writing. The story in this book was just so captivating and so compelling, and that was thanks in large part to the incredible writing of Akwaeke Emezi. The writing in this book just really draws you in completely from the very first to the very last page, painting a picture every step along the way, portraying a story so heartbreakingly tragic, but also so incredibly moving and beautiful as well. Another thing about the book that I thought was really well done was how death, loss, tragedy, and grief were portrayed. The story shows how difficult it can be to go through those things, as well as how difficult it can be to live through those things as well. The story in the book deals heavily with what it's like to be the one left behind after a sudden and unexpected loss, and the guilt that one can feel from being the one still alive, still there, and how the pain of losing someone can consume you. How after that loss, it feels impossible to remember a time when you didn't feel that sorrow or sadness constantly aching at your soul. An example of that grief being described in the book after a sudden and unexpected loss can be found on page 14, where there are a few quotes that describe the world of grief that Vivek was unknowingly being born into, as well as the grief that those who love Vivek faced after his own tragic death. So I'll go on to share those quotes now. This is how Vivek was born, after death and into grief. It marked him, you see, it cut him down like a tree. They brought him into a home filled with incapacitating sorrow. His whole life was a mourning. Kavita never had another child. He is enough, she would say. This was enough. Picture a house thrown into wailing the day he left it, restored to the way it was when he entered. Picture his body wrapped. Picture his father shattered, his mother gone mad. A dead foot with a deflated starfish spilled over its curb, the beginning and end of everything. So those are a few of my favorite quotes, so I just thought I'd share them. Another thing about the book that I thought was really well done was the conversation around how there has to be a tragedy for there to be a change in mind or acceptance. The story in the book not only revolves around Vivek's death, but also around a time when Vivek was alive. When Vivek was alive, his parents were constantly worried about him, specifically his mother. You know, as Vivek got older, he became increasingly withdrawn and depressed, so much so to a point where it seemed like he no longer cared about himself or his life. His mother had no clue as to why her once joyful son seemed like now someone she barely knew or recognized. She wanted so badly to help Vivek, to help fix whatever it was he was struggling with. She loved her child and just wanted so desperately for him to return to the Vivek that she once knew. One of the saddest parts about this book was how Vivek just didn't feel safe enough with his parents to talk to them about what he was going through. Vivek's parents should have been the people in his life who he felt the safest around, should have been the people in his life who he felt like he could tell anything to, but Vivek just did not feel that way about his parents. Vivek felt as though he had no choice but to keep from them why he had become so withdrawn and so depressed, to keep from them why he no longer seemed to care about himself or his life. Vivek felt as though he could never be fully open and honest with his parents for fear of how they would react, for fear of how they wouldn't understand, for fear of how they would judge him, for fear of how they would no longer love him, and for fear of how they wouldn't accept him for who he was. Eventually in the story, the truth about Vic comes out. Vic's mother, already heartbroken from losing her child, heartbreaks even more when she realizes how her own child didn't feel safe enough with her to go to her and to talk to her, because they didn't feel a sense of safety around her to be open and honest, fearing how she would react if she knew the truth. After Vivek's death, his parents would have given anything, everything, to have Vivek back in their lives once again, to see his face once again, to give him a hug once again, to tell him how much they loved him. It's only once Vivek is no longer alive that his parents are willing to see and accept Vivek for who he was. They would, though, never get the chance to tell Vivek that, because sadly that blind love and acceptance only came around once Vivek was no longer alive. The last thing about the book that I thought was really well done was how the book talked about how important and special it is to have true friends by one's side in life. Vivek, for many years felt so alone and isolated with his feelings. He had no one to talk to about what he was going through, and because he kept everything to himself, he felt as though every day he was drowning, falling deeper and deeper into a depression that felt like it was swallowing him slowly, bit by bit, with each passing day. Then slowly, Vivek began to see joy in the world again. And that joy that Vivek began to see in the world again and within himself again was because of the friends in his life. Vivek ends up reconnecting with some friends of his from when he was younger at exactly the right time in his life. Around his friends, Vivek feels safe enough to talk to them about what he's feeling and everything that he's been going through all alone. Around his friends, Vivek feels a sense of unconditional love, safety, and acceptance, to where he can be fully open and honest with them about himself, without any fear of what will happen, without any fear of judgment. It's around his friends where Vivek feels like he can embrace who he is and be his true and authentic self. Vivek's friends, whether they knew it or not, saved him. They were a lifeline to him, a support system. Around his friends, Vivek was happy and could just be and live life freely. It was thanks to their kindness, love, and friendship that Vivek got to be himself, if only for some brief moments in time. Those brief moments in time meant everything to Vivek. Those brief moments in time meant the whole entire world to Vivek. So those are my thoughts on the book. Now for my star rating, I gave this book 5 stars. And now for, is this a book I would recommend to read? The Death of Vivek Oji is not an easy book to read. The story is incredibly emotional, heavy, and heartbreaking. There is also a taboo relationship in the book between Vivek and another character that can make the story at times uncomfortable to read. That being said, I feel that it's the stories that really make you think, really make you feel something, that are the stories that are the most worth reading, because those are the stories with something to say. Those are the stories that can open up and change minds. And The Death of Vivek Oji is definitely one of those stories. So I would recommend this book to read. The Death of Vivek Oji is a book worth reading with a story in it that you will very much remember long after reading it. And so, yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. As always, thank you so very much for watching, and I hoped I helped you discover a new book today along the way as well. And until next time, bye.